All right, students, this is Miss Bowman recording on Monday night for Tuesday. And we're going to read chapter 3 of Stolen Children by Peg Carrot. Now, yesterday we realized that Kendra was missing. Kendra was kidnapped. And Amy is pretty much freaking out. She knows that she was kidnapped because she found Tubby, who is the stuffed animal that Kendra will not go anywhere without. So let's see what's going to happen next. Chapter 3. Amy wondered if she should call the police first, or call Mrs. Edgerton and let her call the police. In the second that she hesitated, trying to decide, she heard a vehicle roar into the Edgerton's driveway. Hoping it would be Mrs. Edgerton, Amy rushed to the front door again. Even if it was the mail truck or FedEx or the gardener, at least it would be an adult. Right then, Amy felt as if she needed a grown-up by her side. Even though she dreaded telling Mrs. Edgerton that Kendra was missing, Amy couldn't cope with this on her own. She flung open the door and rushed out just as a tall man leaped from a van and ran toward her, leaving the door open. Amy hurried toward him. "I need help," she said. The man looked at her as if she had 3 heads, as if he could not believe what he was seeing. Amy heard Kendra before she saw her. "Tubby!" Kendra sobbed. "Me want Tubby!" Amy froze, staring at the man behind him through the windshield. She saw Kendra in the car. Amy whirled around and dashed back toward the house. A deep voice from the car shouted, "Stop her!" Footsteps slapped the path behind her. Amy raced inside, slamming the door and locked it. Then she ran to the kitchen looking for a phone. She saw the base of a portable phone on the small desk next to the oven, but the receiver wasn't there. Mrs. Edgerton must have used it and then set it down somewhere. As Amy searched frantically around the room, she heard the front door open. As she had just locked it, the man had a key to the Edgerton's house. This didn't make sense. Even if he had a right to be here, he shouldn't take Kendra. She finally spotted the phone on the counter by the toaster. She grabbed it, punched talk, got a dial tone, and jabbed 9. She had not yet hit the 1-1 when a tall man burst into the room. He held a small black gun and pointed it at her. "Drop the phone," he said. "Now." Amy laid the phone on the counter. She noticed a wrinkled sheet of notebook paper near the sink. It had not been there earlier when she rinsed the ice cream dishes. In an instant, the man reached Amy. He snatched the phone, listened for a second, tapped off, and then put it down again. A second man strode into the kitchen. He was older with long strands of hair combed carefully over his balding head. "Smokey," he said, "you promised no guns." "She was trying to call for help," the tall one said. "Did the call go through?" "No, I got here just in time." Smokey looked at Amy as he talked, but his eyes seemed to see straight through her, as if she weren't really there. Several days' growth of beard sprouted on his face, and his uneven hair looked greasy, as if he had not shampooed for many days. He put the gun in his pocket. "Let's get out of here," he said. What are we going to do about this girl?" the older man asked. Both men glared at Amy as if she had caused a problem. "She'll have to come with us," Smokey said. "Kidnap both of them? We can't leave her here. She'll have the cops after us before we could start the engine." He looked at Amy and jerked his head toward the front door, as if telling her to go that way. She stayed where she was. The older man walked toward the front door. Smokey grabbed Amy's wrists and held them behind her, forcing her to walk in front of him. He pushed her through the door. When they reached the door, Amy saw Tubby on the floor. Then she dropped it where she had dropped him when she turned the lock. "That's her toy," Amy said. "That's what she's crying for." "Hugh," Smokey said, "pick up the toy. She's going to attract the attention of half the county if she doesn't get it." Hugh stuffed the cat in his pocket. "Spoiled brat," he muttered. As soon as they went outside, Amy looked toward the van. She hoped Kendra had climbed out to look for Tubby while the men were inside the house, but the tear-streaked face peered from the window, and Amy heard a loud wail. Toby, followed by a hiccup. Open the door, Kendra, Amy shouted. Get out of the car and run. Smokey! Hugh glared at the man behind Amy. Keep her quiet. Help! Amy yelled. Keeping one hand on Amy's wrist, Smokey clamped the other hand over her mouth. One more sound, he muttered, and I used the gun. As Hugh sprinted to the car, the back door opened, and Kendra slid out. Hurry, Kendra, Amy thought. Run, go to the neighbor's house and tell them what happened. Instead, Kendra stood beside the car, watching the two men and Amy hurry toward her. Tubby? She asked. Hugh reached Kendra, picked her up, and set her back in the car. Seconds later, Smokey shoved Amy into the back seat with Kendra. Amy didn't try to get away. Even if she could have freed herself from the men's strong hands, she didn't want to escape without Kendra. Amy patted the child's shoulder. It'll be okay, she said. I'm going with you. I'll take care of you. Even though Amy was more scared than she ever had been in her life, she tried to appear confident so that Kendra wouldn't be frightened. No matter what happened, she would watch out for Kendra. She was responsible for this little girl, and she would do whatever was necessary to keep her safe. Smokey got behind the wheel and started the engine. Amy took a tissue out of her jeans pocket and wiped Kendra's nose. Hugh sat turned sideways with one arm on the back of his seat. He looked at Amy. Don't even think about yelling for help, he said. We were easy on you just now, Smokey said, because we didn't want to hang around here any longer than we have to. But if you do anything to attract attention, you'll wish you hadn't, and so will the kid. Tubby fall, Kendra said, her voice quavering. Tubby and Mud. She wants her toy, Amy said. Hugh fished the cat out of his pocket and tossed it over his shoulder. It landed on the floor in front of Kendra. Amy retrieved it and gave it to Kendra. She needs a car seat, Amy said. She's too little to ride without a car seat. Tough, Smokey said. It's not legal for her to ride without a car seat, Amy said. If a police officer sees her riding this way, you'll get pulled over. Smokey shrugged, indicating he couldn't care less, but Hugh glanced quickly in all directions as if looking for a patrol car. He's nervous, Amy thought. He's afraid of getting stopped by the police. Sit here, Kendra, Amy said, patting the center of the back seat. You get to wear a seatbelt today, just like the big kids do. As Amy buckled her own seatbelt, Kendra wiggled over until she was sitting where Amy had indicated, then let Amy pull the center car seatbelt around her and buckle it. It wasn't as good as a car seat, but it was better than no protection at all. Where are you going? Where are we going? Amy asked. You're going to be a movie star, Smokey said. You're going to be filmed by the great videographer, the one and only Smokey Sanderson. I never would have agreed to do this, Hugh said. If you weren't my nephew, I would never have said I'd do it. You don't want to be rich? Smokey asked. You don't want to split $500,000 in cold cash? Because if you don't, you can drop out right now and I'll take your share. Keeping a 3-year-old for a week was one thing. This is a whole other deal. Hugh glanced at Amy. A week? Amy thought. They're going to keep us for a whole week? Nothing's changed, Smokey said, except now 2 families will be desperate to get their kid back instead of only one. Every day's video will be that much more important. Old Smokey's going to make those dudes so eager to get their kids that they'll be begging us to take their cash. Hugh turned to look at Amy. Why were you at the Edgerton house? He asked. Dariel was supposed to be the only one there. I was babysitting. I'm taking care of Kendra. Babysitting? Hugh glared at Smokey. What happened to Dariel? I thought your girlfriend was a nanny. She was. Was? Are you saying she isn't anymore? This whole deal was based on having Dariel there as our inside contact. I think she's still the nanny, Smokey said. You think? Don't you know? What's going on that you haven't told me? Nothing, Hugh. Nothing. It's just that Dariel and me, well, we kind of split last week. You split? Yeah, she needs some time by herself. She dumped you. No, she dumped you and you didn't tell me and we went ahead with your scheme even though your ex-girlfriend knows all about it. What if she tells the cops? Relax, you worry too much. She won't tell because if she does, she won't get the $50,000 that I promised her for letting me copy the front door key and telling me the mother's work schedule so I'd come when Dariel would be the only one there. But she wasn't there. The girl was taking care of the kid. He looked at Amy again. Why were you babysitting? He asked. Where was the nanny? She's on vacation, Amy said. She went on a trip. Hugh groaned. She did? Said Smokey. What if the Edgertons post a big reward for information that leads to Kendra's safe return? Hugh said. What if they offer $100,000? Darielle still won't tell, said Smokey. Right, her deep love for the loser she broke up with will keep her lips sealed, and she'll pass up a huge reward. She can't tell because she was in on it. Hugh nodded. You're right. By giving you the key and the mother's work schedule, Darielle became an accomplice. If she turns in, she gets in trouble herself. Besides, she knows that if she tells, I'll kill her. Smokey said it as casually as if he were saying, she knows I'll call her. The words hung in the air. He means it, Amy thought. A chill crept down the back of her neck. She and Kendra had been kidnapped by a man who was ready to murder.